Once upon a time, in a well-known city called Jaiye, there lived a wealthy family that had only one son, Michael, who was pressured to get married early. But Michael wanted a responsible wife, so he decided to disguise himself and relocate to a neighboring village to live the life of a lowly poor man in hope of finding a responsible lady for a wife. Jaiye was a city known for flexing. It was almost impossible to find a decent lady in Jaiye city. When Michael told his parents about his plan, they kicked against it. They could not imagine their own son, the heir to such a massive empire, living in a poor village like a lowly, poor, wretched man. However, Michael convinced them that he is already well known by almost everyone in Jaiye city as their son, and so every woman would be willing to do anything to win his heart, concealing their true nature and pretending to be who they are not just to impress him. His parents eventually saw eye to eye with Michael's plan and allowed him to go ahead with his plan. But they gave him only 2 years to return with a bride, or they would provide one for him by themselves, and he would be left with no choice but to accept any woman they choose for him. For the next 1 month, Michael left his hair unkept and his beards unattended to, so he would look very tattered and wretched. After that, he went to the market and got some cheap clothes. He started his journey to the nearest village he could find. When Michael got to the bus stop, the driver asked him where he wanted to go. Michael thought for a while and answered the driver, "I was a trader, but I lost all that I had. I am looking for a village with good and kind people, where I can re-establish myself from scratch." The driver looked at Michael with pity and compassion, and he suggested to him, "Let me take you to my village. My people are very nice, and you will have no difficulty re-establishing yourself over there." Michael thanked the driver and boarded his bus. They drove for a long time, and after some hours, they arrived at a village. Unlike Jaiye city, it was underdeveloped, but they had the basic social amenities. The driver took Michael to his home and introduced him to his wife and children. The driver's wife welcomed Michael wholeheartedly after her husband explained to him about Michael's predicament. She prepared a room for him in their home. It was a very small and scanty but neat room, but Michael didn't complain. The next day, Michael began his mission of finding a responsible lady he could marry. Adapting to their way of life was difficult, but he was determined to see it through to the end. He started by finding a job and eventually got one at the market square. He was given a wheelbarrow, and his job was to carry foodstuff for customers from their market to their homes. Michael was well built, so the job wasn't too difficult for him. Most of the people he offered his services to were rude and unkind to him. They disrespected and talked down on him because of how he was dressed and what he did for a living. After staying in the village for 1 year and 6 months, Michael was already giving up on the idea of ever finding a responsible bride. He made up his mind to accept whoever his parents were going to provide for him because it was already 2 years. He discussed with the driver and told him that he wishes to take a bride, but all the ladies he has met in the past 18 months were all rude and harsh towards him. However, the driver urged him not to give up yet. Instead, he suggested that Michael went to a different market other than the one he has been frequenting since he came to the village. Perhaps he would meet new people, as some villagers preferred the other markets. But he warned Michael that wheelbarrow pushers didn't earn a lot of money there. 1 week after Michael started frequenting the suggested market, he saw two ladies in the market while he was scouting around for customers. They had just finished buying quite a lot, so he ran to them, offering to help them carry their purchase. Their names were Lovett and Grace. They obliged, but while Lovett was rude to Michael, Grace was kind towards him. As he carried their purchase on his wheelbarrow to their house, Lovett warned him severally to ensure that none of their products dropped on the floor, while Grace urged him to be careful that the road was not smooth. When they got to their house, Lovett went inside the house and instructed Grace to pack the items inside the store. Michael offered to help her with the tax. When he was done, he asked her, "Why is your sister rude to you? Why did she leave all the work for you?" "She's my stepsister and she's older than I am. I guess it's my responsibility to do whatever she instructs." They talked a little bit more before she called on Lovett, her elder sister, to pay Michael. Lovett came and threw the money on the floor for Michael to pick like a beggar. Then she went back inside. Grace apologized for her sister's rudeness and thanked Michael for helping her with the tax. From the little conversation Michael had with Grace, he got to know that Grace was an orphan. Her mother died many years ago, and her father took in another wife, who was already Lovett's mother. A few years later, her father also died, leaving her at the mercy of her stepmother, Helena. Grace was being maltreated and ordered around like a slave. She did all the washing, cooking, and cleaning of the house. She had nowhere else to go, so she had to endure. Although Lovett was more beautiful than Grace, Michael had already fallen deeply in love with Grace's personality. The next day, Michael asked the driver's wife about Grace. The village was a small one, and everyone knew each other. The driver's wife told Michael that Grace was a very nice and humble lady, and almost everyone in the village loved and admired her. Michael then asked her, if she's loved and admired by everyone, why isn't she married yet? Grace had many tutors, my dear, but Helena, her stepmother, is very wicked. When a wealthy man comes for Grace's hand in marriage, Helena will insist that the man should marry her daughter Lovett instead. Helena would go ahead to say all sorts of bad things about Grace just to make the suitor reconsider his decision. Michael felt very sad after hearing about Grace and what she had been going through in the hands of her stepmother. He made up his mind that he would marry her. The next day, Michael took his wheelbarrow to the market in anticipation of Grace. He didn't see her for the next few days. Until a week later, he was fortunate to see her in the market all alone. He quickly ran to where she stood and placed the sack she held in his wheelbarrow. Grace laughed. "It isn't too heavy. I can carry it myself. Besides, I don't have any money to pay you today."
"Don't worry, I will serve you today for free,"
Michael said. Michael followed her until she bought everything she came to buy at the market, and then helped her to carry the goods home. But he didn't reach her compound. He stopped few miles to their compound so that her stepmother wouldn't query her for allowing Michael help her. This continued on for 3 months. Whenever Grace came to the market, she would spend more time because she was with Michael. They both enjoyed each other's company. Her stepmother noticed that Grace always spent more time in the market over the months and asked Lovett to monitor her. On that particular day that Lovett was asked to monitor Grace, Grace and Michael spent some time with each other, talking and laughing after she had finished buying what she came to buy at the market. On their way home, Michael told Grace that he had fallen in love with her and would like to marry her. Grace was shocked at the statement. "But you don't know me," she protested.
I know you are kind and generous, Grace, and I want you in my life. Please, say you would marry me.
"You're equally a hardworking and benevolent man, but I'm afraid my stepmother wouldn't make it easy for you."
Don't worry about her. If you feel the same way I do, I will take care of the rest.
Grace didn't understand what Michael meant by he would take care of the rest, but she accepted to marry him. In joy, Michael lifted her up and held her in a tight embrace. Unknown to them, Lovett was looking at them from afar. Lovett quickly caught up to them and laughed at the both of them. A slave falling in love with a beggar. What a perfect couple. I think you suit each other just fine. Don't worry, my mom would hear about this. Then she walked away, leaving Grace and Michael shocked. Michael urged Grace not to worry, but this time he followed her home to meet her stepmother. When they arrived, Helena was already waiting for Grace at the door. Immediately Grace showed up, she gave her a dirty slap and asked her to kneel down under the sun. Michael felt deeply hurt and sad. Out of anger, he told Helena that he loved Grace and would like to marry her. Helena laughed heartily at his statements and looked at him from head to toe.
"You wretched poor fool. Can you afford to take care of yourself, yet alone taking care of this thing called Grace?"
I believe we can manage, ma. What would it take to have her as my wife, please?
"Well, if you love her so much, I would have given her to you for free because she's useless to me. But tradition demands that you provide some items."
Then give me a list and I will have the items ready in a week's time, if that's all it takes.
Helena was insulted by Michael's air of arrogance. She went inside the house and wrote down a list of expensive items. Out of anger, she returned and threw the list at him. But the wind blew the paper on which the things were written to where Grace knelt down. She picked it up and glanced at the items. On seeing the amount it totaled, she exclaimed. Michael collected the list from her. He simply looked at the total and told her he'll be back in a week as promised. Helena laughed at him as he left, believing that Michael, a common wheelbarrow pusher, cannot afford the items even if he worked every single minute of his life. Michael went back to the driver's house that afternoon. The driver was at home when he arrived. He told the driver to take him back to Jaiye City. The driver was surprised at his sudden request, but took him as he requested. When they got to the motor park where they had first met, Michael told the driver to take him to a particular company. Are you sure? That company is one of the biggest companies in Jaiye City. Most Wedu people are denied access. Talk more of a struggling man like you. Don't worry, just take me there and I'll pay you. The driver did as Michael instructed and took him to the company he requested. Immediately the guards outside saw Michael. They quickly raced towards him and collected the bag he was holding. The driver was astonished at their reaction. Michael asked the guards to pay the driver and they gave him a bundle of new notes, exceedingly above the price he had mentioned and agreed with Michael. Michael thanked the driver and entered the company after promising to reach out to him later. Michael went straight to meet his father in his office and informed him he has found the woman he wanted to marry. Coincidentally, his mother entered the office at the same time with a beautiful lady. She was shocked when she saw Michael dressed like a beggar with dirt and bushy hair. Mom, Dad, I have found the woman that I want to marry. You gave me 2 years, but I was able to do it in a year and 10 months. Michael's father hugged him happily, but his mother appeared a little disappointed. Immediately, the lady who came in with Michael's mother heard what Michael said. She stormed out of the office with Michael's mother running after her. Michael didn't understand what happened, but his father explained to him that his mother already had someone she wanted him to marry, even before he went in search of his own bride. Michael's father welcomed him wholeheartedly and granted him the permission to marry Grace. In 1 week, Michael returned to the driver's village with a convoy of luxury cars and a bullion van which contained all the items Helena had written down on the list. When the driver and his family saw him, they couldn't believe their eyes. Michael gave the driver a new bus and a lot of money to take care of his family. Then he went to see Helena. Lovett and Helena were shocked, so shocked to see Michael looking young and handsome as opposed to the tattered and unkempt man they knew him to be. The bullion van was parked in front of their house, and some muscular guy started to offload its contents at Helena's front door. Grace was equally astonished by Michael's appearance. She was upset that Michael lied to her about his true status. Michael ran after her and pleaded for her forgiveness. He explained his reason for doing what he did, and Grace understood him. They hugged each other and entered one of the cars. Lovett tried to be nice to Michael on seeing how worthy he was, but Michael ignored her and drove off. Michael arrived Jaiye City with Grace and took her to the best hair salon and fashion brand. When they were done fixing Grace up, she looked even more beautiful than Lovett and the lady his mother had previously brought to him. Michael took Grace home and introduced her to his family. His father embraced Grace and accepted her as his daughter-in-law, while his mother respected his wishes and welcomed Grace into the family. In a month's time, they had the best and luxury wedding of the year. Their wedding was the talk of the town for 2 weeks. It was the feast of the year, and they lived happily and joyfully ever after. The moral lesson of this story reminds us that no matter our condition or situation, always be humble and diligent in all you do. The people around you would be a testament to your personality, and this would open doors of opportunities for you because lots of people will be willing to stand up for you. The driver got a new car and favor from Michael because he was benevolent to even a complete stranger. So despite how cruel the world may be, always show kindness, cause you never know which of your random acts of kindness will unlock doors of favor to you.